Hey everybody, this is Greg from Kaplan Boating. I'm here with Lieutenant Jake Geist, Master Diver, Dive Coordinator at Fox Lake Fire Protection District. Welcome, Jake.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's great to be here. This is going to be an important video talking about water safety here. We're on the chain of lakes or near the chain of lakes. But before we do that, Jake, how about a little bit about yourself? You're from the area?
Yes, I am from the area. I grew up around here. And I've been a part of the fire department here for about 14 years, and I've been a rescue diver for 8 years.
How'd you get into diving? What brought you here as a diver?
That's a good question. I've always liked diving. I've always liked everything to do with the water. So when I became a firefighter here, it was just on my radar, something that I always wanted to do. And I got the opportunity to do it, and here I am. It's been 8 years, and like you mentioned, I recently took over as a dive team coordinator for our department, and it's been a good experience. So,
great. So Fox Lake, you'd cover more than just Fox Lake and the chain of lakes, right?
Correct. So anything within the basically northeastern part of Lake County, we will respond to right off the bat. Anything in Round Lake, Lake Villa, Antioch, Grays Lake, and then obviously Fox Lake as well. That's our quad. Any water rescue that happens in those towns, we will respond immediately. Also, we'll go mutual aid to Lake Geneva or Lake Michigan, Kenosha, Waukegan, and then obviously there's a lot of smaller bodies of water that are inland that we will respond to as well. So yeah.
Sure. So you mentioned Lake Geneva, Lake Michigan. Unfortunately, there's been some tragedies and some incidents across that. Anything unique about the lakes? And Lake Michigan's a different body of water compared to a lot of the inland lakes. But what should we know about specifically the chain of lakes or even Lake Geneva?
Well, the chain of lakes, I'm sure your viewers may know this already, but it's very shallow. The majority of the chain is about 5 feet. You have some lakes up north in Antioch that you have 30-foot, 40-foot sections depth, but the majority is about 5 feet, 5-6 feet. And then some of your channels in between, you're talking 2-3 feet. So that's obviously something to be concerned with. If you're swimming or jumping in or tubing, doing any type of water sports.
Yeah, so consult the map, get GPS, understand where the depths are. Obviously, we don't want anybody diving, head first into water. You're saying go in feet first, walk in.
Oh, definitely, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're gonna jump in the water, if you don't know the water at all, I would never dive in the chain head first. I would always jump in feet first. If I even jump in at all, I might just, let myself off the ladder.
Yeah.
But
great advice. So you're on a lot of calls. What do you see as the biggest causes of some of these reasons why you and your team are called out there?
Sure. I would say, well, off recent incidents that we've had, they've been water sports, tubing, jet ski accidents, and those are all preventable. Obviously, alcohol is a big risk factor as well. Those two are usually involved when something happens. One of those two are usually involved when something happens. So, yeah.
Yeah, alcohol. I remember I took some of those boat safety classes, and there was a stat that stuck in my mind that said, one drink on land is the equivalent to 3 drinks on the water. Presume that's around the sun, being out in the sun, dehydration, things like that.
Yeah, the waves tossing around a little bit, making it a little bit more dizzy, I would think. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, so, in terms of tubing, I think the orange flags are, great, right? That's the law now. I've even seen some folks with orange hats, which I think when you fall off, or like a swimmer's cap, that's a good idea.
Sure.
Now, there's different types of life jackets, life preservers, right? Typically the minimum is that orange that goes around your neck, the life preserver.
Correct. That's the minimum.
That's the minimum. It's obviously not for water sports, though.
I would not wear that for water sport. No, that's just designed to keep your head above water. Minimum flotation. A lot of the PFDs that they recommend for water sports, they have like a 20, 30-pound lift, and they'll keep your buoyancy well above the water. And one thing I wanted to touch on with the PFDs is, obviously things happen, and things can happen quick, and accidents happen, and that's why we are there. But with those water sports, if you don't have a life jacket on, and something happens, you hit your head, you get knocked out, at least that life jacket will keep you on the surface, and someone will be able to grab you and give you some sort of medical aid. If you don't have a life jacket on, you could be underwater, and in the chain, that's another thing to know about the chain, is that it's very murky. You can't see. It poses a big problem for us because we can't find people.
Yeah.
So that life jacket will save lives, and I feel like that's the biggest thing that I can drive home, is just to wear one, especially when you're doing water sports of any kind.
Yeah, so we were talking off camera. One of the things you said, one of the most important things, if somebody falls off the boat, whether it's tubing and they don't have a life jacket, or off the boat, is something that you call the last seen spot.
Yes. Yeah. So just an idea of like kind of what happens when we get toned out for a water rescue. We get a general location. It may be like Mineola Bay, and we'll take a vehicle to Mineola Bay, and we'll see if we can see something. But we need to talk to witnesses. The witnesses know where the person went underwater. They have the last seen point, and we need to talk to them. If they don't have a good last seen point, if they don't know where the person went in water, obviously the chain of lakes is a big body of water. We could be searching a large area for a long time. Versus if we had a good last seen point, we could drop a buoy and work off that buoy, a marker buoy.
So you're recommending stop the boat immediately, turn off the engine, drop anchor. If you have GPS coordinates, drop a pin. So there's generally pretty good cell service across the chain here.
Yep.
Those.
And call 911 right away. When you call 911, especially when you're on the water, they know right away to ping your cell phone, and they can get GPS coordinates off your cell phone call, and they'll ping that, and they'll send that to us for GPS coordinates for when they called 911, where they called 911, and we can work off of that as a last seen point as well.
No, that's great advice. So Jake, what about anchoring? We see a lot of folks anchoring in the sandbars of Columbia Bay, Petite Lake, but also I've seen folks anchoring in the middle, whether it's fishing or just swimming. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it has its time and its place. I would not recommend doing that on the weekend, especially if you're in the main thoroughfare of that large body of water from where boats are just trying to get past you. You're just asking for an accident to happen. You're talking about some of these boats go 70, 80 miles an hour, and they may not see your little fishing boat, and they may just run right into you. So.
Yeah. So there's places for it. They're great, but still be careful, right? You don't want to be diving off head first into some of these shallow areas. Mostly it's sandy, but by the shores it's a little rocky, and it's not just soft sand.
Correct. Yeah. Definitely, you do not want to dive in head first in the chain. Definitely, when you're at the sandbar, you don't want to dive in head first. You just got to use common sense and be careful.
Yeah. What about the muck? I mean, the folks get stuck in that. I mean, it's really thick. I've stood up in it and kind of sank a little bit.
Sure. I mean, if you have enough velocity in your plunge and your feet get stuck in the muck, yeah, you may have a difficult time getting out by the time you can take a breath.
So Jake, we'll wrap up with any additional points or anything you want to leave folks with before we wrap up here.
I would just say, just be careful, use common sense. Definitely wear a life jacket if you're doing any type of water sport, any tubing, any jet skiing. wear a life jacket, and it'll save your life. And obviously, have fun out there. The chain is a great time. There's a lot of attractions, a lot of things to do out there, but at the same time, water is dangerous, and you know. So,
Well, that's great, Jake. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for watching, and again, appreciate Fox Lake Fire Prevention District and Lieutenant Jake Geist for having us here today. Have a great day, everyone. So we're in the dive van with Lieutenant Jake, and you're going to talk to us about some of the equipment in here.
yes. So we have 7 divers on our department right now. This is where we will bring this to any water rescue incident that we have, and this is where the divers will get ready with their gear. We wear full dry suits. These dry suits are they don't let water in at all, and then we have our dive BCs. BC stands for buoyancy compensator, and this is what actually keeps you on the surface. And then when you want to go underwater to start your dive, you press a button and it deflates your BC and you sink, and you get to the bottom and you start doing your patterns, whether that be a rope pattern or if you're working off a dive bar and being towed. So there's various methods to start a search, but these are 80 cubic foot scuba bottles, and we could be underwater for probably 30 minutes looking on just one bottle. We have full face piece masks with wireless communication, so we could talk to each other underwater. We can talk to a boat underwater with these, with the comm unit, which is convenient and helpful. Communications in general are just important for when you're looking for someone.
Sure. So what kind of sonar equipment do you have to help try to find anybody?
It's actually just a Lawrence fish finder. It's a I would consider it a high-end fish finder, and you could actually pick up shapes underwater that you'll be able to tell if you're going over a log, or when you're looking for a person on that sonar, it'll actually look kind of like the shape of a person on the sonar. And that's just on our boat. And anytime we have a real water rescue incident, we will call a Mavis Division 4 and 5 sonar team, and they'll respond with their sonar equipment, which is much more high tech, and they'll do their search for sonar, and then or with sonar, and when they have a target, they'll drop a cage in the water, and the diver can swim down to that cage as a reference point,
right,
and they can direct that diver to the target.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
Very high tech.
When you're underwater, and I had a camera underneath just for a reference, there's really zero visibility in the chain.
Yeah, you're talking 6 inches to a foot on a good day.
Yeah.
If in ice rescue incidents, actually, that silt will settle down and you'll have more visibility in the chain. It's still not anything like Lake Michigan where you have 50 feet of visibility.
Right.
But you may have 5, 6, 7, 8 feet in the wintertime when there's ice above the water. So
it really is a lot of boat traffic. Really churns it up.
yes,
And
it churns up that muck, and it just becomes one giant, muck-filled lake. Here on the wall is a cascade system. So on this cascade system, we can fill up all our dive bottles on scene. If we have to do more than one dive per diver, you have a logistics board here to keep track of how many divers we have, where they're at, what they're doing. It's just a accountability thing for us to make sure we are making sure everyone's accounted for. And that's it. There's various equipment. We have harnesses, spare weights, spare regulators, flashlights, underwater flashlights. We have some Swiftwater stuff up there, PFDs, helmets. So But everyone has their own individual assigned gear,
Yep.
and they all have their own dry suit. BC, all their equipment is assigned to them, so we don't have to share anyone's equipment with anybody else.
Excellent. That's great. Thanks for taking us on this tour.
For sure. Into the water.
What's this for?
This is a fire pump. This will actually draft water out of the lake. There's a boat fire on the lake, and we'll be able to extinguish with this pump.
Makes sense. Anything else? You said earlier divers can stay underwater for 30 minutes and then come up and replenish the tanks. Generally, how long can the team stay out there on the boat replenishing tanks, looking before you need to come back to the department station?
It's a logistics thing. So if you're in rescue mode, then we are going to be sending divers out there as fast as possible and getting divers down as fast as we possibly can. But like I said earlier, having that last scene point is going to be important to figure out where we're going to send divers to. We could have divers underwater for about 30 minutes. You need to have a primary diver, a safety diver in case anything happens to the primary diver, and then a 90% diver. And those, all three of those divers can kind of swap out. Once the primary diver is done, he can become the 90% diver, and then the safety diver can become the primary diver. And then after that, you pretty much have to come in, back to shore, swap tanks, rehab, because those divers are going to be tired from swimming for about 30 minutes looking.
What's a 90% diver? What does that mean?
A 90% diver means they have all of their equipment on without their mask. So they're just ready to go in case anything happens to the primary and the safety diver.
And what is a safety diver?
The safety diver is already in the water on the surface with his BC completely deflated. If anything happens to that primary diver, he will immediately go and help him out with his face mask on, breathing on air, everything. So he just has to get down to him and help him.
Right, so there's a lot of logistics. You got to.
Yes.
Yep.